If you have the chance to listen to one of Howard Stern's old interviews, don't, the radio icon advises. If you have one of his previous best-selling memoirs, Private Parts or Miss America, Stern advises, burn them. Famous for asking celebrities about their sex lives, Stern regrets the shock jock he was. I was an absolute maniac. He recalls of his career's first couple decades. My narcissism was so strong that I was incapable of appreciating what somebody else might be feeling. He adds, I have so many regrets about guests from that time. I asked Gilda Radner if Gene Wilder had a big penis. Of course, he hasn't changed that much. His new collection of interviews and reminiscences is titled Howard Stern Comes Again. After all, that was a conscious decision. Stern, 65, says in an interview with The Post from his Long Island home, I was almost going to call the book Howard Stern, The Interviews or something. Then I said, wait for a second, that's really not reflective of who I am. Because while we're doing these interviews, in the next minute, you know, we might be doing our fart humor and having people throwing up on one another. My sense of humor hasn't changed. He said, before referring to his old superhero character. I am Fartman. I don't deny that. What he does deny, or at least has moved away from, is outrageous for the sake of outrageous. He recalls unfortunate on-air encounters with George Michael, Eminem, Will Ferrell, Carly Simon, and others. Possibly my biggest regret was my interview with Robin Williams, he said, recalling when he badgered the star about having left his wife for his son's ex-nanny. I'm not proud of my first 2 books, Stern writes. I don't even have them displayed on my shelf at home. I think of them, and of the interviews I did with my guests during that first couple of decades of my career, and I cringe. Stern began facing his demons in the late 90s, by finally seeing a therapist. Today he's happily married. He paints. He gets along with publicists. I really wanted to get out there and tell people that psychoanalysis works, to not be afraid, Stern said. It took me 5 years to call this psychiatrist I saw. I didn't want to admit I needed anyone. I didn't know what it was all about. I found it incredibly intimidating. In fact, one of the reasons I included Bill Murray in the book, he sums it up by saying, you take a good hard look at yourself and sometimes you don't like what you find. And that's true. But, Stern said, when you do, real profound change can happen. Even though he was in therapy up to 4 days a week, it took Stern 20 years to work up the nerve to call Williams to apologize, but the comic died the day after Stern sought out his number. I'm still filled with sadness over his loss and remorse, Stern writes. He reports he has made amends to many others. So does Stern consider himself to be in recovery?